Let's get chilly. Hello and welcome back to Let's Chill, the official, unofficial Minnesota Wind Chill, Minnesota Strike podcast. I'm Jeff.
I'm Jay.
And I'm Kane.
And we're back with yet another episode recapping Minnesota Wind Chill. Wow, not Minnesota Strike. They did not play this weekend. The Minnesota Wind Chill had their second game of the season. Took away another dub. Now they're 2-0 on the season, beating Chicago in Chicago after a pretty rough start. They came back and won it.
Yeah, I was a little worried at first there. I was like, oh shoot, here we go again, like back to classic Minnesota v Chicago. And honestly, it really wasn't until after the second half that I started to feel pretty confident in Minnesota getting back into the game. And I felt like we got back into the game like right after the half, which was nice. It didn't take the full, 4 quarters to get it going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Before we jump too much into this game recap, I do want to do that stall count.
Thank you, Jay.
Let's
always keeping us on track.
Share the screen.
All right. Make sure you remember to read the answers for people listening.
I will. All right. Welcome back to Stall Count Trivia, Season 2, Episode 6. All right. Question number 1. Which quarter have the Wind Chill scored the most points in this year? First quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, or is this a trick question and the Wind Chill give no quarter?
That is a fun question.
C, third quarter. I feel like we have a good third quarter.
I'm gonna say B, second quarter, but last night notwithstanding.
It is C. It is the third quarter. I was hoping one of you guys would pick the Chill give no quarter, which would also be wrong because the Wind Chill gave the first quarter against the Chicago Union. But other than that, they've won all other 7 quarters.
Really?
Yeah. So
that's a fun fact.
In their third quarter, they scored 10 points. And one second. Let me double check these stats. Gotta make sure I'm right. Yeah, it is the third quarter. In the third quarter, they scored 10 points. In the second and fourth quarter, they scored 9. And in the first, they scored 8.
Interesting. That's a fun question.
All right. Which player is in the top 5 of all major stats categories on the Minnesota Wind Chill team? Those categories are goals, assists, blocks, plus minus, completion, throwing yards, receiving yards, and total yards. So is it A, Tristan Vanny Mortel, B, Matthew Redder, C, Jordan Taylor, or D, B Vaughn?
Is that this season or all time?
That's this season.
Ooh, this season?
Yeah,
they've all had standout years.
Yeah.
In 2 games.
I'll do Redder.
I'm gonna put Taylor. Taylor's been that guy.
Those are both wrong. It's actually Tristan Vandy Mortel.
Yeah, I felt like it was gonna be. He's just he's so like consistently consistent. Yeah, I was like, it's obviously him.
Redder is missing from 2 categories, and I think JT is missing from just the one, where he's in it, but he's the 8th highest completions. He's not in the top 5 for completions. Otherwise, Tristan Vandy Mortel. And that's kind of a cheeky one because Tristan Vandy Mortel's tied 5th for blocks with 1. It's like him and like 6 other guys tied for 5th.
Still counts. Still counts.
Stall counts.
All right. So these are fun ones. Between the UFA and the PUL, how many undefeated teams are left? 7,
0,
8, 9, or 10?
Whoa. There's no way it's more than 7. What? I'm saying 7. It's got to be as low as possible. It's 7.
I'm going 10. I'm just going a complete opposite.
Jeff, you are right. It is 10 undefeated teams. It's the UFA season is very fresh. Yeah. So, I mean, Minnesota Wind Chill, Madison Radicals, and Indy Alley Cats are all undefeated. So there's 3 right there. Right. There are actually no undefeated teams in the East Division, and the Summits, as of recording this, I believe have played 2 games and won them both. So like the East Division, the West Division has a couple of win teams, and then I think there are 3 in the PUL total.
No way. In the PUL?
Yeah, I think it's Gridlock, Shadow, and I don't know. I'm gonna double check. I'm almost positive there are 3.
I know Shadow. I'm pretty sure Shadow for sure undefeated, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is Philly.
Portland?
Philly,
Oh,
Surge, and
Mm.
Gridlock.
Wow.
No,
Fun
Portland is
question.
1-1.
that's right, Portland. Yeah.
All right. And then between those two
Mm.
leagues, how many winless teams are
All
there?
right.
That's right.
Now
I'm
I'm gonna
gonna
say 7.
I'm gonna say 8.
You're both wrong. It's 9.
Oh,
Yeah, there are a lot of completely winning teams and a lot of completely losing teams. Again, a lot of teams have only played 1 or 2 games, so it's really
yeah.
easy and early in the season, but still
Fun.
quite a few.
Very nice. Very
Good,
nice.
good trivia today. Very stats focused. I like when we each
Yeah.
get a chance at it because it kind of shows, what we each like.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, one of those undefeated teams, of course, is the Minnesota Wind Chill after they took the dub in Chicago, like we kind of previewed. The first quarter, I wasn't able to watch live, but so I was following along on my phone just on the app. And once I saw first quarter was done and it was 5-2, I like shed a single tear. Um, and then when I saw like after half, they had come up and they had built like a, I don't know, 2 or 3 goal lead, like a comfortable lead. I literally tweeted on the Wind Chill Talk account, oh, the Wind Chill locked in. And then that's when they like gave up a couple points and it was like almost tied after that. And I was like, oh crap, I totally just jinxed that. Like I messed that one up. Uh, but they did win. They won 16-14 against the Union. Um, it was a crazy game. Let's just kind of put it at that. It was a crazy game.
Yeah, I mean, the roster looked a little different last night, a little different
Mhm.
than what we are expecting, like the final 20 to be, that championship weekend roster to be, that
Mhm.
playoff season roster to be. Um, but I do think that there are a lot of good players last night, a lot of players we weren't expecting, and who all came up pretty big.
I mean, I think just like last year, the strength of the team is their depth. Like they are able to call on the next guy up. And it doesn't feel like they're a skeleton crew. Like, and last night they definitely weren't a skeleton crew. I don't think that's fair to say, but right, they didn't have some of their top guys, and they again, I don't want to say they didn't need them, but like they were fine. They were able to hold their own and come out with a win. Otherwise, maybe other teams would probably be like, well, we'll chalk this up to a bad roster, take the L, and get them next time. But like the Wind Chill were able to take one on the chin, lose some of their guys on the roster, and still come out with a win, which is huge. You need to be able to do that. So
And like I was saying a little earlier, was that before we let Chicago kind of get back a little bit, and we never really let them take the game back though. That's even though we let them kind of
mm,
come back a little bit, it still felt like we were in control of that, and that happened. To me, it felt like the momentum changed right after the second half. The second half began, and so to your point about like needing to be flexible with the roster, having the ability to adjust that quickly is even more important because let's say we're going up against like the Empire, right?
mm,
That's an even more unfamiliar opponent. We have to be able to adjust quick. And so showcasing that ability with a limited roster is good.
yeah.
Yeah, and that third quarter start, I believe the Union actually started with the disc, and I believe that Minnesota scored last at the end of the second quarter.
Mm,
Um, so this is something that Minnesota's really good at, is scoring at the end of the quarters. And at that third quarter, they actually started with 3 breaks. So I believe Minnesota scored 4 points consecutively, and they
mm,
actually had an opportunity to score a fourth break in a row in the third quarter, like back to back to back to back. It's like Minnesota could have, and I mean, that would have been so demoralizing for Chicago. I was really, I mean, obviously rooting
mm,
for them to do it, but like if they would have done that, I wonder if the score would have been like any different. Having
right.
sent another O line out there for Chicago after going unbroken for the majority of the first half.
Yeah, it is interesting that Kane, you're kind of saying like that the team adjusted very well, especially against. I mean, we can face it here. Like the Chicago team is a little bit unfamiliar even to the Wind Chill. Like they did a pretty good job kind of reloading. Like I don't think they're still at their full strength, as what they could be, but like there are enough familiar and new faces to this Chicago Union team this season that the Wind Chill did have to adjust. And again, like that first quarter, the Wind Chill are always kind of notoriously slow at starting and getting into the rhythm, but I think they do a good job at bouncing back, figuring out what they need to do, and making those adjustments on the fly live. And yeah, like even after a half, like Jay was saying, like it's not like they get rusty in those 20 minutes after that half is done. Like they come out swinging and like, okay, here's what we need to do in this next half, and they execute. And they did that on Saturday.
Yeah. I mean, not only was the team like a little bit new, like you were just saying, some of these guys are like veterans who are coming back, but a lot of these
Right.
Winchell guys are young.
Right.
I mean, so they haven't seen these vets play before. So even if they have played Chicago and a lot of the players are familiar players, they're
Mhm.
not familiar to this set of Winchell guys.
That's true. Go read my article about the rookie class and the young uh, pups growing up in the Winchell system. It's a great article. Um, yeah, I think there are other factors that played into this game too that we were kind of talking about how this kind of felt like an ugly game. It was a pretty physical game. There were a lot of calls. There were a lot of missed calls. Again, we don't have to talk about the refs too much, the observers, but I think the nature of the Winchell and Union is a physical game. It brings out physicality. It brings out those close calls, and there's like it's highly competitive. And that was very evident on Saturday.
Yeah.
I
I
want to
think
talk about,
when I
oh, sorry.
I think when I talk about like the Minnesota Wisconsin rivalry, I call it the friendship rivalry. I always note that those games have a higher like level of competitiveness to them
Mm.
and a little more aggression, but not with anger and not with a lack of sportsmanship. I feel like when it comes with Chicago, and it's on both sides, I'm not saying it's, one or the other. I feel like there is a little bit more like behind the aggressiveness, a little bit more behind it, a little more jawing. And I don't know. I think that makes for a more a worse
Intense.
game. I think it
Yeah.
makes for more mistakes.
Yeah, I think that they almost is. Are you saying like they almost let it get in the way of their game and just
Yeah, I think it really
yeah,
did. I think that from the get-go, they really did.
yeah. I wonder too, and I'm just kind of speculating like if it's because Union are actually a threat to the division. Like we can kind of play Madison and be like, oh, you guys took this one, but like we're still gonna go to championship weekend. But with the Union, it's like if we don't win this game, this could truly be the difference of the season. So like they get a little more aggressive or so, I don't know. And I'm just kind of guessing
Right.
here, but I wonder if there's a different aspect to it.
Yeah, no, I definitely think there's just like also a different attitude towards Chicago because of right, like that kind of
Yeah.
historical standing that they've had. So
I think it goes more than just the players on the field as well. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw Minnesota's tweet about beating Chicago. It's
Yeah.
can't spell chill without shy L, like Chicago L.
Yeah.
And like that's maybe the most dirty talk Minnesota Wind Chill's social media team ever gets down to. I mean, Minnesota's social media team is usually just praising the chill guys. But man, that was dirty. I mean, it wasn't horrible. It's funny, it's
I
all
mean,
good spirits, but that's about as bad as it gets. And like Brandon
it's
Mattis does the Union logo with the L in it. Like,
it's true though. Like I feel the same way. Like there's something about it when I'm watching them. Like last year when Sam Kaminsky was on the freaking field and I was sitting in the end zone watching him, I was trying to do because they always do like the Union. And like I want him to look at me so bad because I was just gonna like throw the L or whatever, like and he didn't look at me. But like I felt like I needed to contribute to this game somehow and like be aggressive. And it's
yeah,
weird.
I
Yeah,
mean,
like it's not healthy maybe, but
and anytime Chicago plays Minnesota at home, we're always cheering louder, trying to get in the players'
yeah,
heads a little bit.
those
yeah,
games
Um,
always just like I get headaches at those games every time.
right.
yeah, sore throat.
Um, so let's talk about some of these like calls though. I mean, like how they impacted the game. Again, not to bring about the observers, but like were there any specific points or not even specific points, but themes that we saw that like, oh, that was really sloppy or that play was ugly and it changed this point. Anything that you guys can think of? Because I have a few, but
Um, Traveling.
hmm,
And this is something I was talking to Kane about yesterday. Um, Kane texted me and said, "Bruh, Kaminsky cannot throw without lifting all 10 toes." And that had me rolling because it was like literally back to back travel calls on him, and then he did it on like the very next time he had the disc as well. Like it's true though, and I think this is something that really bothers me and something that I feel like observers and players get away with a lot, and observers don't really notice is traveling
hmm,
because a lot of times the players drag that back foot and they will like lift it up as they're throwing to get that extra yard when trying to break a double team, and that's a travel. Like that is like definitionally a travel. So it was really good that Minnesota's double teams were like forcing travels out of Chicago, and it was really nice to see that the observers were actually calling it. Um, because like by the book, those are travels. I do think there were a couple of missed travel calls on the chill that they definitely could have gotten, where a player may or may not have switched their rotating foot, their pivot foot. Those are harder to notice, I will admit, but definitely a few more, but it can be cleaned up a little bit there. But yeah, it was nice to see some of those fouls being called at least.
Feel like a lot of the rhythm of the game was just interrupted by calls. Like it just felt like you couldn't play for more than 2 minutes at a time without a whistle being blown for one reason or another. And maybe that was just me. Maybe I was just like impatient to watch Ultimate, but like it's like, man, there's another whistle. Like I don't know. It just like felt like a weirdly like high call game.
And
And even so, they missed. I feel like they missed a lot of calls too on both
I feel like they
sides.
missed a couple stall counts. And I feel
Yeah,
like I wasn't even the one that noticed that at first. Like I was watching the game and then one of the announcers brought it up and I was like, yeah,
yeah.
that's been a few times where they've held the disc for a while. And again, it's been on both sides. And I wonder like because I know the league is like looking to expand like officiating. I wonder if that rule is kind of like self-officiating might have to go out just
Right.
because some of these games, like obviously a game of what second game of the season, Central Division, it doesn't really mean anything. That's fine. But if you get to a championship weekend situation and these calls are going the same way, well, it's like the
Um,
game really could just be a toss up at that point. And
yeah.
that's not, obviously I'm being a little dramatic here, taking it to its extreme, but
No, I know what you mean. Yeah, it's like, and it's tough. Like again, we're able to watch it in slow mo and replay and all these things on our couch. But yeah, sometimes it just gets frustrating. And even so, real time. Like I know some of the players are frustrated with some real time calls that they saw in the moment. They're like, "Come on, that's clearly not that," or "Wow, he really did do that," and stuff like that. So that will be a conversation that we will be having till the end of time. No matter how well they do it, no matter if they get robot refs, any of that. Like we will always have complaints about that, but definitely it's a factor.
yeah, for
Yeah,
any
but
sport too.
yeah,
I do want to say though, there were a few really good calls by the refs. There were a couple of catches that were, I mean, pretty low to the ground that I mean, there was one, I don't remember who caught it on the wind chill, but all the Chicago guys were like pointing, like, hey, he dropped it, that hit the ground. And on replay, you can see like
Hmm.
no, he got his arm completely under there. Like his arm, like disc actually didn't touch the ground at all. Like no part of the disc touched the ground. His arm was under it, and you can see
Nice.
the ref was like looking directly down. Like in the clip in the replay, you can see the ref looking directly at it.
Yeah,
And then something similar happened on the Chicago where he got his hand underneath the disc like last second on a
He was
layout
like
to save a
laying out,
possession,
yep.
and like the ref, you can see the ref looking straight at the disc. So I do think that like there were some missed calls, and there are always going to be missed calls. But I think the majority of the refs did a really good job. They saw most things happening. They called most of the calls correctly.
hmm,
Um, and I mean, the ones they missed were mostly helping out the wind chill. So can't complain too
yeah.
much.
Okay. So enough about the observers because they did not play in the game on Saturday. Um, we can make an observer referee podcast if we want.
Hey, observers, if
Um,
you're listening, we'd love to have you on the pod, every single one of you.
I've low key thought about it. Um, there were a couple standout players on the win show who we want to bring up, especially again, like this different roster that we saw. Um, Not the expected standout players. The typical names you see is Snyder, Clay, and Bevon, all those guys who did a great job. But um, I want to give a shout out to Noah Hansen, Marty Adams, Tristan Van Martel, and Gordon Larson. They all, I think, stepped up in big moments in this game. And again, like we talked about earlier, filled that role that they needed to fill. And not only like were a body on the field, but they were contributing factors to the win, which is huge.
Yeah, I mean, earlier in that stall count trivia, we mentioned it. Tristan Danny Mortel holds top five in every major category. He's been having, I mean, it's again only 2 games, but he's picking up right where he left off last season, where we were all shocked last season how well he was playing, how good he was. We were all excited to watch him this season, and he has not even started to let us down. He is playing amazingly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think seeing Noah Hansen and Gordon Larson, like you said, Jeff, kind of stepping more into those roles that they've been looking for themselves to fill. I mean, we had them on the podcast, both you guys, if you're listening, we'd love to have you on again. But you can see this game was a great example of both of them looking for their opportunities in the team. We were down a few key players, and they showed that they can slot in. And so, yeah, big shout out to all these guys for stepping in and contributing in big ways to the win.
Yeah. I think too, like again, not to like totally like plug my own article, but like in my article, I kind of wrote about how some of these players and Hansen and Larson are two of them, but also Tristan Van Mortel is a relatively young player to the team. I think this is only his third year on the wind chill. But again, like what I'm saying is like they don't have a ton of experience or like professional experience, but that's really only because like college. It's only because of like other commitments. Like they are those guys, and we're gonna see that now. Now that like they're graduating and they're getting more play time, like we're gonna see why they play at Carleton. We're gonna see why they've got this hardware and all these things.
When Will Brandt takes the
Oh,
field, our offensive efficiency is going to skyrocket. Jay, mark me down for that. You have to check before and after.
All right. Yeah, I will. I mean, our offensive efficiency last night was like a 69%. Very nice hold rate.
nice.
But yeah. I
I
mean,
mean,
talking
go ahead.
about Hansen, I mean, he had the highest, tied for highest plus minus for the wind chill yesterday. I think he had a block last night. Um, I think he had two goals as well. He was playing amazing. Um, and there were a couple of times where maybe a missed call, maybe just a little bit closer, he would have had, arguably
Mhm.
another block. He was always putting on really good pressure. And he was, I mean, a step or two away from having another goal and another block, so he was really good there. I think Gordon Larson, I mean, was catching every pass that was in his vicinity. He saved possession at least 3 times yesterday. And that's not something that like stats keep track of.
Mhm.
But Gordon Larson, not no flashy numbers, but saved possession at least 3 times on passes that could have otherwise been turfed. So
Yep, that's huge. Unquantifiable, but definitely important. Yeah. Speaking of offensive efficiency, I'm going to skip this next point for now on our agenda about potential injuries. We'll bring that up in the forecast, I think. Um, but the offensive efficiency, Jay, you said was like 69, um, which is nice, but there were a ton of turnovers in this game. It felt like again, like lots of stoppage of play, lots of whistles, turnovers because of blocks, missed throws, but also turnovers because of you know all these other factors. Um, when I looked it up, both of so the Winchell had 13 turnovers, the Union had 17, which is actually both lower than their average. I think in 2023, they both averaged like the Winchell averaged like 17 turnovers per game, and the Union averaged like 20. So they actually did better last night. But I don't know, maybe it was just me, but I feel like it felt like there were a lot of turnovers. Maybe that's just me. I don't know, but I do know that the Winchell forced the Union to throw a lot more passes too. Like the Union threw like 100 more passes than the Wind Chill, which again we saw that with Pittsburgh, and again style of play and stuff. But I think the Wind Chill are kind of making that approach, forcing throws, forcing turnovers, like waiting for that mistake and then capitalizing when that mistake comes.
yeah, and I think a big part of that as well is those double teams that Minnesota's been throwing on handlers because that takes a lot of like aggressive looks away from the handler and
Mm,
takes the more like makes them have that more conservative, that swing pass, that dump pass, maybe a short forward pass. And I also think that those double teams did bring up a lot of those turnovers because well, you can't see anyone, you can't see your dump pass, you can't see anyone to give the disc to. You just kind of
mm,
got to throw it to that guy. It's a bad pass, and oh no, there's a turnover. And I think that's what happened a lot for the Union yesterday, um, especially when their D line had a break chance.
mhm.
They kind of were stuck in this. Well, I have no one to throw the disc to, so they kind of gave the disc back to our Minnesota offense.
And again, like they even like try to cheat with that extra foot, like you were saying, Jay, like dragging that back foot to break that double team, kind of get that backhand in between, and they take an extra step or something that turns into a travel, and then that again that disrupts the player positioning, all these things that I think affect ultimately the point. So
And one thing Minnesota has also been really good about is when the cutters from the deep space are coming in, the if they're on man coverage, you notice they don't always stick with their man. They kind of switch into a little mini zone, and then they'll split and switch defenders a lot of the time. And so what it allows them to do is it helps them to like clog the throwing lane as well. So then even if, the lane, like the throw may be open, there's
Mhm.
still a defender kind of in the way. And so I think just like again having this sort of field command and field control over everywhere, not just where the disc is super important when you want to, make plays on defense.
Yeah, it's like they have one-on-one coverage for 4 players for those deep cutters, and then the handlers are just clogging up that space, like you were saying.
I've definitely noticed that with both Thomas Schopp and Leo Sovel Fernandez because, again, those two specifically, well, I'm really just plugging my own article because I researched those two specifically, watched as many, clips of them as I could as they're playing, both with the wind chill and without the wind chill. And yeah, they both, like, they do a great job at transition defense, figuring out where they need to be effective. Just because we're playing person defense doesn't mean I have to be on my person if I'm going to be more effective clogging this cutting lane or transitioning to handler, stuff like that. Like, yeah, so both those two in particular, I think, do a good job at that in general. But yeah, I like that you called that out because I agree. Um, Jay, I think you put this down. How the offense had a lot of turns that Union gave back. So there are a lot of turnovers, but you also mentioned, Jay, like the deep look failures. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, so I feel like a lot of the break chances they gave to the Union, were these kind of like these deep looks that they were taking that just didn't really make sense.
Mhm.
I know Sam Berglund, we have a quote from him saying if his flick huck is available, he's going to take it. And he
Yeah.
took one yesterday, and it was way too deep. Our cutter was Minnesota's cutter was not nearly far enough downfield yet, and he was trying to put it into the end zone. And Minnesota usually and like historically has had like a very high huck percentage. When they look deep, it's usually like, yep, that's the pass we're going with. That's where the cutter's already like
Mhm.
running that way. We're already set up for it. Um, but I think the second point was like that they saw a lot of opportunities. They saw like, oh, this cutter is getting to that deep space. I can hit them there. But they were just a little bit too fast with the throw, or they threw the disc a little bit too far. It wasn't quite calibrated the depth it needed to be. Or
Mhm.
what we saw, I think, twice yesterday was that it was actually thrown too high, and it just allowed it to be tipped, or caught by Chicago. It allowed the defense to get a hand in there and kind of threw off, because if they can get a read on it too, it's a 50-50 jump ball, and it's 50-50 at that point, you might not come down with it.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I think the Windchill's general strat is to kind of look deep first, almost honestly. And yeah, like it just didn't quite seem to work last night. And I honestly think, and we don't have to really get into this, but I also will. I can predict that strategy and that approach almost going away with the wind chill. I think they're going to start playing not full on small ball. I don't think that's the approach at all, but some sort of hybrid of like pass among your handlers, get open with a midfield cutter, and then look deep kind of thing. Rather than just like get a gunslinger in the backfield and see what happens, like, spray and pray kind of thing. Which is, again, maybe not what that's a kind of bastardizing what they do now. Like it's more than that, but you know what I mean? Like I think they're setting themselves up for a more deliberate uh offense in the future. So, but and
yeah,
again
and
with the new disc too, like I wonder if that played a factor last night.
that's what I was going to say. I think that might have been a little bit of it. And I do think that Berglund, his pulls are flawless. That's kind
Mhm.
of like our thing. Cameron Lacey's pulls are flawless too. At one point, they had to redo the pull like three. They
Yeah.
did the pull 3 times, and it was just hilarious watching it because it was like when they had to redo it the second time, I was like, man, if they mess up this pull after those first 2 beautiful pulls, I'll be so upset. And then the third one was perfect as well. Anyway, those deep looks are usually very good for Minnesota. I mean, last night the huck percentage was 50%, kind of low. Um, but I think later in the season, and once we get a little bit more like calibrated with the how fast this player runs, how deep I need
Yeah.
to throw this disc, I don't need to put it in the end zone. Getting it close to the end zone is good enough. Those sort of things. And
Hmm. We lost Jay.
looked a little
Oh,
bad last night, but I definitely think that they'll clean it up.
yeah, I agree. Do you want to get into the clip? Uh, This is more about the double team and some good offensive movement. Not about deep throws, but I can share. Okay. I also going to go full screen because I did not do that last time. I'm doing all this now. My bad. All right. Yeah, this part, Jay, you brought up sharing this clip. Do you want to preview anything before I hit play here?
I think that this clip really highlights Minnesota's defense really seeing the field and also like their defensive strategy this year, and it's slightly different than last year, and it's showing the efficiency of that in this point.
Yeah, and then so just so people know what to look for, we're gonna see a sideline trap, a double team that's gonna result in a turn, and then the wind chill are gonna pick it up, and yeah, just so you guys are watching. So this is at 0.75 speed. So this is just off the pull, I believe. So there's no sideline trap yet, but there will be after this throw. You're gonna see. Okay, so we're getting a sideline trap set up, and I feel like the Union here also didn't like do a great job moving downfield. Like you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of their 7 players like on this side of the disc, which I don't know. Like maybe I'm being too critical here, but I feel like they just didn't do a good job at like moving and preparing for this play. Um, and it actually I think results in this bad throw here. So we got a sideline double trap or double team. And they do a great job. Like they do a great job um, preventing Sjogren from getting that disc off. He's looking to get a swing. He's looking to reset the disc more centered, and you can see that layout. I don't know if he actually gets a hand on the disc, but
he does tip it. It is recorded as a block.
Nice. Yeah, and then I'll just keep playing it just for a little bit longer because Jay also then mentioned Sam Berglund's second effort in this upcoming play. Jay, if you want to narrate this at all, you can too. But
yeah, so Berglund he gets double teamed on the sideline, a good sideline trap, but he finds that good reset pass. I think that's what Chicago was kind of struggling with against Minnesota, was forcing Minnesota to take bad throws all night. And I think coming up, it's 2 more passes. Berglund has a pretty good highlight play.
So you see Berglund at the left top of the screen here. Marty Adams has the disc right now. If you're watching, so watch Berglund. Again, doing a good job, just like setting up on the field and figuring out how to get the disc. Here's a pass.
Yeah.
Berglund kind of tips that.
Goes for the catch and tips it. So again, when I was first watching this, I thought Berglund actually intercepted a pass here. I was not. I must have just. I went back and rewatched. I thought he intercepted a pass on this one. So I thought it was a great like second effort defense. It was a great second effort offensive catch. But I just want to like take a moment. Like he was going for that tip disc and he jumped. And I mean, Berglund's a kind of tall guy. He's not super tall. He's like 6'2", 6'3", much taller than all of us. But he's around some height as well. But the way he is in front of the defenders there is also really important to see. And I think that's what makes that second effort so important is Chicago's defense, especially their O-line, was not playing great defense. They weren't setting up good traps. They weren't setting up good like positioning to prevent Minnesota from getting that swing reset pass. They weren't in front of Berglund there. If they were in front of Berglund there, he's not catching that disc. Yeah, no way.
Right. I mean, again, when you're an offensive player though, like to their credit a little bit, like you're not ready to play defense. Like you're not set up to play that. So I think not to be like, oh, it's okay, Union, but more to praise the wind chill. Like they took advantage of that and said, like, we know that the Union are not strong on an offensive turn. And so yeah, like you said, like when Berglund makes that second effort, like that is it's not a must catch. Like that's a little dramatic to say. But that could have been another turn to give the Union a hold. Like if Berglund didn't go for that second effort, he would have just missed the disc, and he very well could have, like on defense, he'd be like, oh, well, it's a hold. It's still like a free point. But he did it. And I think that's like key to the win, honestly, because every turnover is going to add up.
Yeah, and I think another part of that is Minnesota's offense was good at playing defense against the Union. when Minnesota gave up the disc, they got it back a lot. If I'm not mistaken, the Union were like 25% on break chances. Like they were like 4 for 16. Yeah, 25% for break chances, um, which is just not good. I mean, and 3 of those were in the first quarter. So, or 2 of those were in the first quarter.
Interesting. Well, and the
So,
first quarter was terrible for the wind chill.
yes, yes. So,
Yeah. All right. All right. Any last talking points before we get to mailbag? We actually have a mailbag this week. Okay. All right. So again, just to kind of preview mailbag a little bit, we send out a form, usually every Sunday morning after the wind chill and strike games, just to get the opinions, the thoughts, ideas, questions from the fans who are watching and listening. And I've been kind of asking a few set questions, but also leave it pretty open-ended. Like, what are your thoughts? What else do you want to share? So, I'm just going to go down kind of some of our responses. So the first question I had was just, what are your initial thoughts from the wind chills game against the Union? And we'll read this and we can reply to them if we want. Someone said a slow start. We did not seem connected and it took us some time to get going. But as the sunset and chilly air blew off the lake, the wind chill came alive. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think there was a slow start, like we already mentioned. Like the wind chill just sometimes just need a quarter to kind of get their legs underneath them. But yeah, I think as the night went on, the wind chill looked like the wind chill. I'm a little hesitant to read this next one, but I think I will. It's not me who's saying this. So whoever says this, it's on you. This is the start of the perfect season. Knock on wood. So
Look,
I
I
mean,
predicted it. I agree. I'm not saying that I didn't put that in the mailbag. I'm not saying that. I agree though. I think
yeah.
that this was a really good showcase of what Minnesota is capable of. And to bring it to that last one again of it took us a quarter to get warmed up, but I mean look at Minnesota previous seasons, even last year in wins against Chicago. We didn't necessarily warm up as fast. So I agree.
And then again, this is another answer we got that we already kind of touched on, but I like that people are saying this too. The changes to the lineup showed in the first half of the wind chill. So what they're saying is like the new roster, the unfamiliar roster definitely showed. The first half was weak for the wind chill. The defense took over in the second half, tightening up on their matchups, forcing a veteran Chicago offense to make mistakes. The wind chill D is relentless. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We've already kind of touched on a lot of that, but right, like I think defense, especially in this game, probably won them the game. I think their defense really carried uh carried the W. Jay, if you want to comment, you are free to,
no,
but we can
no,
move
no,
on.
no, no.
All right, this next one. I always just like to try to do a multiple choice questions because I think it's easy for people to answer really quickly. You don't have to write anything, give your opinion. So I said, who is the player of the game? And the options were Tristan Van Noah Hansen, Matt Rader, or other. So we have a three-way split. We have Noah Hansen, um, Tristan Van and someone typed in other and said Brandon Mattis. He was a player to watch. Jeff Weiss, right? Jeff Weiss. Um, was a non-factor all game. Brandon Mattis was matched up with Weiss most of the game. And Jay, you were mentioning how Weiss really did not make much of an impact on the field. Is that right for Chicago?
Yeah, so at first I thought he was doing some good stuff, and like this comment mentions, Jeff Weiss was like a player to watch this week in the players to watch UFA article.
Mhm.
Um, and he played 19 points, so he was on the field quite a bit. Second highest, the next highest is 20. And he only had 38 completions. He's not listed as having and like the stats. He had fewer than 2 assists, he had fewer than 3 goals, and his plus minus was less than 4. So he was not that he wasn't impactful, but he was not the player to watch on the Chicago, and he was supposed to be. So
Right.
I do think Mattis really did shut him down quite a bit.
Yeah, that's huge. Um, that's really exciting to see. Like again, that we can again kind of quantify that to an extent. Like not that we know for sure that this cut that Mattis made prevented this goal, but the fact that he had so few goals, we can kind of say over the course of the game, just stopped Weiss from even making an impact. Um, okay, kind of looking ahead now, and this is kind of going into the weekly forecast, but we're still sticking with mailbag, but we're kind of combining them. Predictions for the home opener for the wind chill against the Thunderbirds. Do we want to give our predictions first, or should I continue with mailbag?
Let's do mailbag.
Mailbag. All right. So fans' predictions for the Thunderbirds game. Someone said no doubt a W. Someone said 22-16 wind chill. And someone said Thunderbirds have 2 poor games in a row at home. Wind chill will be too much for them again. Yeah.
Yep.
Enough said.
22-17.
All right.
High scoring game.
Yeah. Yeah. That was sweet. Okay, prediction for the Strikes' first away game of the season. They're playing the Raleigh Radiants. Someone said 13-10. They didn't say who was going to win, Radiants or Strike, so we're going to say the Strike. And someone says Raleigh has 2 great teams, a good test, and we'll see Strike for the first time. Yes, this will be the first matchup of the Strike and Radiants. So this will be the Radiants too were, if I'm not mistaken, the 2023 PUL champions. Unless I'm totally wrong there, but I think I saw that.
I'm actually not positive. How did I forget?
On their Instagram it says 2023 PUL champion.
Okay, yeah, there we go.
But that feels not right. But I don't know. Once the Strike were out, I just kind of stopped watching.
I got kind of sad.
Yeah. But so that'll be a great game, I think. I think that's gonna be exciting. Again, we can do a forecast, but there's just one more. We do an open-ended question with mailbag. So I just said any additional comments, questions, or takes you want to share. Jay, you said we should share this in full?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is a fan's comment that says, well, it says plain, Plane. I'm pretty sure it's a typo that's supposed to say Clane. Josh Clane has to stop making critical errors when we have an opportunity to put teams away. I think that probably goes into a little bit of some of those hucks, right?
Yeah. So I think there were 2 hucks in the fourth quarter, or at least 2 bad, 1 huck and 1 bad look that led to breaks for Chicago in the fourth quarter that got them. Minnesota was could have been up by 4 and ended up only winning by 2. So I think this comment is not a horrible comment. I do think Clay had a couple of bad looks. I don't think it's a bad thing to say that. And I do think he could clean those looks up. But at the same time, I do think that when you're going to be going up by, if Minnesota was 1 more point up, if you're going to be up by that much, taking that look isn't bad. When you have the insurance, testing yourself isn't bad. It didn't work out. It does need to get cleaned up. I do think we needed a bit more cushion before we take those looks. But again, not horrible to test yourself.
And Hannah, if you want to say something, you can jump in too. But I was gonna say, like, again, we've kind of said like that is kind of the wind chill's MO, like looking deep, taking those big throws. And so like I think Clane was kind of doing Clane's thing, what he is familiar with and what the team has done historically. So again, like can't really fault him, but I totally understand, like, right, like we can't just like spray and pray in a tight game. And again, if this is a championship game, like that can't happen, right? Like,
yeah, all I'm gonna say about it is I don't think every single look was the wrong look, but every throw was the wrong throw. And I think that because they weren't caught, like the ones that weren't caught, the ones that were thrown away, whether or not, yeah, we can obviously, break down each single throw, what went wrong. And so I think that, I don't think Clean has to stop taking those throws. I think they just got to be cleaned up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I do think that's something we can like definitely profit off of in terms of game.
I'm not sure if this play was Clane, and I'm not going to make you pull up the clip to see, but around 4 minutes left in the game, Minnesota was looking to take a reset pass, and the other handler went to cut forward a little bit, and the handler with the disc threw back to where they were. And I'm pretty sure it was Clane who took that throw and kind of threw the disc away. But it was just a bit of miscommunication on the wind chill. So I think it's not fair to blame only Clane here. Like, let's be completely real, But if that's the case, I think that also might have been what they were talking about in this comment. But if Minnesota didn't give up those 2 points, it's what, 18-12 18-12 is still a win. Like 16-14, it's a win. 18-12 is a win. I get the point of the comment. I totally agree as well. I'm not gonna sit here and say that this commenter is wrong, but
yeah, and we
I will
love.
sit here and say, Josh Klein, if you're listening, we would love to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, heck yeah.
heck
I know.
yeah.
I think we definitely like get uncomfortable criticizing, especially because we're a small podcast. But I think like having different opinions and like bringing on those takes, like that's something that we might have not. Well, we hadn't brought it up to this point, so I appreciate that insight and that take. So definitely, thank you. Please send in more for mailbag next Sunday morning. We're gonna send it out. So subscribe on our email list on our website so you can get notification. So you can, if you want to defend Josh Klein, you can. If you want to harp on someone or praise the team, whatever you want to add into the conversation. Um, Weekly forecast. We feeling it?
Oh
Weathermen?
yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah.
Just quickly. I'll introduce and you guys can take off from there. But the strike, oh gosh, I have to get like the actual date now. On the 19th, which I believe is Sunday. Am I right?
That's right. It should be Sunday the 19th.
Sunday the 19th, the Strike are traveling to Raleigh, North Carolina to play the Radiants. And on the 18th, what, Kane? Is it South
Is it
Carolina?
North or is it South Carolina?
Oh, I'm pretty sure it's North, but my geography lessons. Jay's looking it up while I preview the
It's
wind
North. It's
chills.
North Carolina.
Okay,
Aha, I
okay.
knew it. um, the wind chills home openers on Saturday, May 18th against the Pittsburgh Thunderbirds. Let's start off with the Thunderbirds because that's the chronologically the first game. Um, what do you guys have to say about the home opener for the wind chill?
Um, how much did they beat them by at home last year? It
A
was
lot, like 12
yeah, it was like
or
12,
more.
13 points.
Yeah.
This is the home opener. This is Seafoam Stadium. This is a Minnesota Wind Chill team who's already beaten the Thunderbirds by a healthy amount in a comfortable game without doing anything flashy, playing in front of their home crowd who's going to want them to do flashy things. Um, I would not be surprised if they run up a tally on the Thunderbirds. I would also not be surprised if they play it safe and win by 4 points. Like I'm not saying they need to win by
Yeah,
20.
yeah.
Again,
It's
winning
not
by
going to be
four
a Detroit
points.
game. Like, you know,
Yeah, it's not going to be 24-9.
I I'm like thinking out loud here. I almost wish we would record this podcast on Tuesdays because I think that's when the rosters officially come out. So we could see who's active, who's injured, because this is weekly forecast. We could talk about some potential injuries that happen in Chicago. Sam Berglund limped off the field, but I think after that limp, he was back on the field, I think.
I'm not positive.
I'm not positive either. I guess I'm just being hopeful, maybe. Um, so we have to check in with him. Um, Toward the end, I think Josh Klein or no, it was Bevon also was like kind of limping. I think there was like one of those final plays. Um, he got injured, and who else was on that list? Jay,
Marty Adams.
Marty Adams. What happened to Marty Adams?
I'm
I
not
have no
positive.
clue.
I think he took another bad step or something. He was at one
Okay.
point limping on the field.
Yeah.
Again, these are just what the announcers were saying last night. It's kind of that weird weather. It's like
Yeah.
it's warm enough where you can be outside, but also like it's cold enough where you're kind of cramping after a lot of activity. And it was a very physical game. I think it could be they're sore, they're tired, they need to get stretched out.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll
Hopefully
see
this weekend they're
on
right.
we'll see on Tuesday, hopefully, like who's active and stuff. And like Marty Adams is officially a practice player. Like he's in reserves. Um, so like if he's injured, it's okay. Like he has more time to recover, is what I'm saying. They're not like counting on for the active 20, but yeah, so we'll see who's in the active 20. I don't know about college players yet. I have not kept up with college rosters and how those seasons are doing. So it's not a great weekly forecast, I'll be honest. But yeah, I think I'm gonna predict at least one Callahan. Um, they already scored a Callahan on the Thunderbirds this season, so I'm gonna put that out there. I'm gonna put the score as I'm gonna put 23-15 wind chill on top.
Whatever I said earlier, 22-14 or whatever. I don't know. Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
knows?
We're gonna win.
Yeah. Yeah. It's gonna be a great time. I've got some noisemakers. We are gonna be those people on the fence. I did not consult Jay or Kane when I bought these, but I bought a drum. I bought a what's it called? Cowbell. So like we're gonna be obnoxious AF.
You thought we were
Uh,
bad before.
yeah, yeah,
You're
it's gonna
ready
be
to
great.
embrace the chill.
But honestly, the reason I bought them, I mean, obviously for home games, but like I want to go to Madison with them, and I want to light up Breeze Stevens Field and maybe even Chicago and like blast our noisemakers in those stadiums. But okay, Raleigh Radiance versus Minnesota Strike. How do we feel about this game? Let me check. I don't know what the Radiance's record is, but I think they're 2-2. They lost to Shadow twice. They beat Nashville Nightshade, and they beat Atlanta Soul. Oh wow, they destroyed Atlanta Soul. So they are 2-2. The
Okay.
Strike we know are 1-1. How are we feeling? Wow, the Radiants have won like crazy. Okay, sorry, I just gotta go over this really fast. Their first game, the Radiants lost to Shadow 16-5. They beat Soul 20-9. They beat Nashville Nightshade 23-11. And then they lost to Shadow 7-13. So like all over the board. Lots of blowouts on both sides, like both ways.
Yeah, it's extremely variable.
I don't
Well,
know.
You know,
I'm taking Minnesota for sure. Going back to my article that I wrote previewing the season, um, the first away game is really important. Um, I think we're gonna come away with a win, and we're gonna come away with the momentum to take us through the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Do you have a score prediction just for fun?
We'll do 17-13. Also a high scoring game, I think.
Yes. Yes.
that would be a very high scoring game. Um, I think the Strike are going to win, and I think there's going to be a couple of key players to watch this weekend. I'm going to say Rachel Johnson. If she is in Raleigh, I'm not positive. Roster's not announced for who's playing this weekend. But I think if Rachel Johnson and Tori Gray are in Raleigh, they are going to be pivotal players. We saw them in that game against the Monarchs. We saw them doing amazing things in that game against the Monarchs. Um, that was a blowout game for the Strike. That was 21-9. Um,
Right.
so
You want to talk about
if those two can get going against the Radiants, I think that the Strike are going to have a very solid game, a very solid win. And I think they'll win by 3 in a medium scoring game, maybe like 14-11.
I think Jay is a sucker for recency bias. uh,
Well, to be
um,
fair, and this I'm not trying to defend Jay here, but especially in sports, I feel like recency bias has some sort of effect. I mean,
yeah,
again, last week you shout out Rich Johnson. I'll say this to the end of the day, but taking that role of like center handler is probably the most impactful, you could argue, position on the field. And so, seeing the last game how she stepped up, it's like definitely keep an eye out for that again.
true. Yeah, true. Definitely momentum is a real thing. Yeah, I don't know. I'm honestly a little bit nervous for this Strike team, especially because like I was surprised at losing to Portland. I think for me, I would have never predicted that. And I think the Monarchs are a pretty weak team. So that blowout, I think again, like you really got to take that with a grain of salt. And then you combine that with like the complete, like very dramatic uh ends of the spectrum of the Radiance's scores in their games. Like I can't get a vibe on like what they're like. Um, and then again, on top of all that, they're traveling out east. I don't know. I want to be hopeful for the Strike. It's a Sunday game, so it's even just kind of like a weird like time thing. I don't know. I'm gonna give it to the Radiants. I think the Strike really are gonna have to be clean. I think their room for error is gonna be minimal to none. Like it has to be non-existent. Um, if they want to come out with this win, I think they can. I definitely think they have the skill and talent to, but again, I don't know if they have the chemistry or the experience as a team to do that yet. I think even when they play like the New York Gridlock, who are also a very strong team, I think even that they could beat them because by that time they'll have a little bit more experience. I think it is in New York. which is a little bit different too, but still, I think, yeah, this is my longer. I'm gonna say I'm gonna put it to be like 15 to 11 radiance. But I want it to be dot that. So I think let's go strike.
Yeah, I mean, I might be a sucker for recency bias, but at least I'm not a doubter. Like,
Yeah,
Okay.
fake fan, big fan.
big
Okay.
fan.
Hey,
Wolves in 4.
If you're
I'm
never,
a
the Wolves literally lost. Yeah, if you're not
I'm
cheering
an
for Wolves in
analyst. I'm not
4.
just a fan. All right.
All right, Jeff,
All
tell
right,
me
that's
any
not what they're
stat.
paying you
Tell
to
me.
do.
I didn't say I'm a stats analyst.
All right, okay.
The
Well,
Windchill are 2-0. The Windchill are 2-0.
we have one more. Oh my goodness. We do have one more very important thing to talk about on this podcast, and that is underwear.
Under what? No,
Underwear.
underwear.
Oh,
Not just
I'm
any
wearing
underwear. The
smile
one
if
and
you're
only
wearing.
Chill Boys boxer briefs.
Yes,
What? Do we have
sir.
a graphic?
We should. I definitely should have done that.
Dang.
Yeah, we we have our first sponsor ever on this podcast. Chill Boys. You might have recognized them from the Minnesota Wind Chill, who they sponsor as well. We definitely didn't just like piggyback off of that, Nick. Hey, give us money too. Um, they have come along, partner with us to bring to help us bring content to you, but then to help us bring underwear to you as well. Um, they gave us some underwear to try out, and we're gonna review it really quick. We're not gonna get like I don't actually I might be wearing some. I totally
I'm
am.
wearing mine right now.
I'm
I'm
not
wearing
showing
mine
mine
right
off.
now.
I also so
The
what did you guys all get? So they have a great line. I want to just show off like what they have really quick. They have all sorts of stuff. They have underwear, they have bamboo briefs, boxers. They've got socks. They have, I believe, shirts and sweatshirts. Um, and when you buy underwear from them, you get this cute little panda sticker. I have it sitting upstairs right now. Like I look at it every day. I'm like, "What's up, panda?" Um, and they've got a great selection. I think part of the Chill Boys experience too is like the design of the underwear is cool. It's not just like, oh yeah, they give really comfortable underwear, but like I don't know. Like I think the design is for me. I like wearing fun
You
to
know
wear.
what? I'm gonna show mine off. I'm gonna do it.
All right, do it.
It's these ones.
wow,
Oh,
that's crazy.
Jay.
I'm wearing
Uh,
those ones right now, and you can
so am
see if
I.
you subscribe to our Windchill Patreon for only $8 a month.
Uh,
Exclusive.
yeah. So this is a pair of underwear that I'm wearing at this exact moment. Um, I went with the large size. For they're a little bit big on me. For any level of reference, I am about 6 foot tall and I am 240 pounds. So that's large is big on that. A little big. They're pretty comfortable. Um, they are very comfortable, very breathable, very long. I'm wearing shorts right now that go
Yeah.
a little bit past mid thigh, and at moments you can see my underwear. These are all things. I'm not saying that that's a bad design. I really like them. I wear them all the time after, washing them, of course. But
Yeah, I
yes.
like that they are lightweight. Again, yeah, they are. I got the medium, and that like fits me. I'm what 5'7" and 150. They're on the bigger side, but like not big, I should say. I like them looser because I think this is something pros and of Chill Boys is that I think they're great for athletes. They are light, they're breathable. You can get them loose, you can get them tight. And I got their socks too because I want to try a range of things. So I got a couple pairs of underwear and their socks. I think are some of my favorite socks. Um, I don't know if I can say this in the same breath as Chill Boys, but like I do wear Bombas a lot. I love Bombas. I would not wear Bombas plain Ultimate. Bombas are really heavy. I like them. I think they're good quality personally. And if I'm like just out and about, I'll wear them. But if I'm playing Ultimate, I can see the benefit of wearing Chill Boys. So like when I'm playing soccer outside, because they're lighter. Like I don't sweat as much in them. I can run. I feel burdensome with my Bombas, but with Chill Boys, yeah, there's that
Mhm.
breathable aspect. I love them.
Yeah, I got 3 pairs. I got one that was specifically a sports like athletic pair. That one I've used while playing frisbee a few times just to test them out, and I really do enjoy them. I'm really particular about that, and a lot of athletes I know are because I mean it makes a difference if it's uncomfortable. And I also do landscaping, and wearing my chill boys out while landscaping has kept my boys chill. And that's not even to mention that I'm pretty sure the panda is actually Chili's cousin.
We should look into
Hmm.
that.
We
Let's
should
do
look into
23
that.
and me. Yeah, we are going to again like I talked to Chill Boys. We're gonna do our best to get some Chill Boys products or gift cards to our fans. So again, stay tuned for that on our social media, on our email list, even at games. We're gonna do our best to see what we can get you guys in the stands. So hit us up, follow us along for the rest of the season because Chill Boys like they're legit. They're legit. And they've got great marketing. Like I love they're cheeky. They know what they're doing. I have their emails coming to my email and it's like, okay, I
Cheeky.
got you. Yeah. But they're not. They cover everything.
They are very
Yeah,
nice. Seriously, go buy Chill
No, yes,
Boys.
seriously. Thank you very
If you
much.
have the money to spend on nice underwear, Chill Boys are what I'm gonna be rocking.
for sure. All right. Anything else? Cool. Well, we are looking forward to Saturday.
And Sunday.
Saturday and Sunday. I think Saturday in particular because we get to go back to Seafoam Stadium, watch the Windshield open their their home opener is what I'm trying to say against the Thunderbirds again. Like definitely not a for sure win. We don't want to say that, but like it's going to be a fun game. It's going to be electric. The atmosphere is always fun. And then again, like we're gonna cool off after Saturday screaming with a strike game. So follow us along on Saturday. Follow us along even on Sunday as we go throughout. Um, check out our mailbag. And yeah, what else we got? This episode is presented by the R1P1 Network. Um, once again, just like they're continuing to do so much great work for us, and we love the creative that they're pushing out for us. So much love to them. Um, and we'll see you Saturday at Seafoam Stadium. In the meantime, stay chilly and
Hey,
ka-chow.
chili.
Stay chilly and
Ka-chow.
ka-chow.